Hi, I'm Steve Sapato, and you're listening to the Speaker Talks podcast for speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, and people who want to have more success in their life. And I want you to know that today I'm absolutely blessed to have on the show with us. His name is John Browning, and he's the expert on the topic of building a life, not a portfolio. And if you need to learn more about managing money, who doesn't, right? If you need to learn more about managing money, this is the podcast you need to tune into. So we're going to spend 30 minutes. We're going to bring John on, and then he's going to help you learn more about managing your money and taking advantage of what's happening in America today. John, are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, John. I'm great. Now, where do you live, John?
I am living in North Carolina, just off the coast, close to Swansboro, North Carolina.
Okay.
So,
And how long you been there?
I have only been here since January, so it's a new experience here on the East Coast. I was in Hawaii for most of last year, which was kind of even nicer.
Yeah, yeah. Relegate me to Hawaii for my penalty version of this. Right?
Well, and that was it, right? When we went over there, we didn't even know that it was going to be the whole COVID thing. And what a horrible place to be stuck for.
I know.
COVID.
I can't even imagine. You probably thought about killing yourself a few times.
It's just terrible.
Jumping into those volcanoes, didn't you? Hey, I never thought. Could you travel from island to island?
No, you really couldn't. No, we were on Oahu, so that was fine. That was great. We explored. We were there for 10 months. We explored everywhere there was to explore.
Yeah, I've been to Hawaii. Spots. Yeah, I've been to Hawaii 5 times, and I don't care what anybody says. I was in Oahu twice, and I can tell fun stories about every time we go there, and what we've done differently. But I remember my stepson at one point in time. My son and I loved to get in the ocean, and my stepson, his mom had scared him, saying there's creatures in the ocean that'll eat you, right? So even though he was like 17 years old and my stepson was like 12, he and I were the ones who would go snorkeling and go into all the pools. So as we drove places, around Hawaii then, and we were on Oahu, you drive around, and of course there's main roads and there's side roads, but we came to this one place, and I always remember the name. It was called Pupukia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Pupukia Cove or something. And we pulled over, and we were the only people. And here's this big old, hole in the coral reef, and the water came pouring in, and we found turtles in there. And while we were there, my stepson said he had to go to the bathroom. And of course, that in those places, there's no place to go to the bathroom. Nope. And he ended up going around, on the rocks and stuff, and way up over there. And he went poo-poo. So that's why we remember Pupukia. But anyway, that's a really bad idea. I was on a podcast this morning. The lady says, "Steve, you go down so many rabbit holes." I went, "Yeah, that was one." We're here today to talk to John Browning about his success and how he can help us succeed when it comes to money. Because let's face it, most of us have never really been taught about money. Most of us have never learned about money. Matter of fact, it's usually a taboo subject. If you ask people, "Hey, tell me how you're succeeding financially," or "tell me what you're making," I tell the story, and I'll jump in here. I was at a poker club with some friends many, many moons ago, and the one guy, for some reason, I sat in with the rich people. Still $1 to play and a quarter to play, but they were wealthy men. A couple of them were millionaires, and they would talk. And one guy says, "Yeah, I was making 18% on my investments," and I would say, "How do you make 18%? What are you investing in?" And he'd go, "Oh, no, I don't want to tell you, because if something went wrong, you'd be upset. I don't want to be responsible." Wow, you're making 18% and you don't want to help me. And he was like, "Nope." And you know what? Every time they talk and I'd ask, they'd say, "I don't want to talk about money." And it's killing America. We need to talk about money. So here's John. John, tell us a little bit about your story, how you got where you're going, and how you can help us.
Yeah. So, I started out right out of college, really. And it was, frankly, a little bit by accident. I had grown up in a place called West Virginia, and there is West Virginia. There's not just Virginia. Some people don't know that. And somehow I made my way after college to Chicago, and it was a recessionary period at that time. So I took anything that I could, and I took this thing called customer service at a major Wall Street firm. And I was just like, "Hi, this is John Browning. How can I help you?" And I did that all day long. And I kind of hated it until later. And I
Yeah.
realized how much I learned just in that fairly short period, about just over a year that I did that before I started moving up the ranks in that firm. And fast forward all the way through to 9/11, and I was in Chicago, but on any given day I would have been in New York City, and I was actually on the phone with a gentleman that was in the second tower and another gentleman that was just down the street, and I heard things before we saw it on the TV. And it was a horrible day, and we remember exactly what was happening during that day, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of push through and you do what you have to do, especially if you work on Wall Street, because it was just, you had to kind of figure out a way to get through it and continue. So for the next year, we did that. And it was almost a year later in July. I had had a typical day in New York City, uptown, downtown, midtown, and various meetings. It was 10:30 at night. I was super hot, with just wanting to get that suit and tie off. And then I looked down. I always stayed at the Millennium Hilton, which is right across the street from where the tower stood.
Right.
And I was looking down, and it was still a mess almost a year later, still cleaning up the mess. And I started to realize then I'm chasing this thing called money. I'm chasing a career.
Isn't that what we all do? Isn't that what we all do?
Well, for a long time I did. And then I decided that I really want to build a life. I've got 6 kids and I'm traveling half time. Over half the time I'm on the road. And so I decided I needed to figure out a way to build a life. Now, with that said, 6 kids. I'm going to repeat that. You don't just quit your fairly lucrative job on Wall Street. But what I realized had to happen is I had to start planning and set some very specific goals and some steps along the way. And that kind of started my whole mantra. And I actually wrote a book about this called Build a Life, Not a Portfolio. So I talk.
Cool. So you got a book on this?
Yeah, I got a book out there. It's an Amazon bestseller, and I wrote that and published it back in February of last year.
2020.
2020.
Okay.
Yep. And
you say last year, and I'm suddenly going 2019. What year was that? Yeah.
Yes.
The year that never was. That's right.
The year that kind of didn't happen for some. Right. Exactly. So, and from there, I have been able to take everything I learned from almost 30 years on Wall Street, managing portfolios and things like that. And I can show people that I call the normal people, right? The people that don't have $10 million or more, how they can use.
There are people who don't have $10 million.
There are a few.
What happened to America?
I know. So I've been able to, I take the same strategies and tactics and I can apply it to their lives. But I always start with money's just the tool that you use. The most important thing is, what is it that you really want your life to look like? And a lot of people get the tool called money and portfolios mixed up with what the outcome is supposed to be.
I think that's really true. I mean, one of the things that we talk about, because I tell people all the time, John, what do you got a timer on that light, John?
Yeah, it
goes around one time and then it goes bink, right? But yeah, when it comes time for, we've all chased the dollar, we've all chased the money, and we still have to have money. Don't misunderstand what we're saying here, but you have to learn how to make money work for you so that you don't have to work for money. Mm-hmm. That's been one of the keys, I think, to what we're starting to do as an evolution for people. My son was 14 years old when somebody said, don't make your kid get a job when they turn 16. Instead, have them read a book of your choosing and do a book report. And first I was like, no way, because I come from John Deere country. It's like, no, get a job, find the value of work. And Cavett said, nope, you're making a mistake, because if you let him go to work, he'll learn what those people want to teach him. He said, what do you think the lowest paid person at McDonald's wants to teach your son? I went, nothing. He goes, exactly. He'll teach him how to go smoke in the back and how to do this. Whereas if you have him read the books, the experts in the categories you're choosing will teach him things that he would never learn in school. And I was like, oh, what a thought. And so we did that. And now my son's in his 30s and now he travels the world. He's a bartender. Everybody said, well, how much? He's a bartender. He loves bartending. He makes a living as a celebrity bartender, and he's not making $200,000 or $300,000. But what he learned to do between the age of 17, when he was reading those books, and let's say the age of 35, which is what he might be now, I think he's 34, but yeah, was how to manage his money, how to spend his money, how to invest his money. And that's why it's really important that people like John come along, because I know it's hard to believe, but there are people who do not want or do not have your best interests at heart. And that's why I think it's important that when you know that John wrote a book called Build a Life, Not a Portfolio, he did it with a big heart. And so many of the stockbrokers do it because they want to make more money. And that's really important, the motivation. When I take on a new speaker, if the speaker says, I want to be able to make $200,000, $300,000 a year, I go, that's great, but you're probably not my cup of tea, because I want the people who will want to speak to change people's lives. And that's what it's all about to me. When you learn you can change people's lives, you'll start to make more money because you help more people. And that's where John is at, right, John?
Exactly. That's exactly it. I'm glad you said that, because that's the reason that I spend the biggest part of our time together when I'm with a new client, especially, and even with my clients that I've had for years. We spend more time talking about their lives than we do talking about their portfolios. The portfolio just is arranged in a way very specific to support what they chose as their best life. And believe it or not, it's not the same for everybody. People want different things.
People want different things. What is that all about? You know what I learned a couple years ago, John? And see, one of the things, why do we need an expert? People go, well, I know how to invest. Well, first of all, if you think you know how to invest, more power to you. Now, let me ask you a simple question. If you've invested in the stock market, you know since the year 2000, it's now 2021, since the year 2000, 50% of the stocks that were on the New York Stock Exchange, or the Fortune 500, I guess it is, 50% of the Fortune 500 no longer exist. They either went out of business or they got bought up. So how do you know which one's going to be there, right, John? I mean, that as a novice, I mean, I could say, oh, yeah, I know my stuff, but it takes a professional who spends their time studying to help you be more successful, right, John?
It really does. And I'm not just saying that because that's what I do. I have spent decades learning it, but people tend to get caught up on, well, I heard this on CNBC, I saw this on Reddit, the meme stocks, and they think, well, I know it now because I watched a 10-minute YouTube video from somebody who's not licensed to give financial advice, but
and probably not rich either.
It may or may not be rich, right? One of my favorite podcasters actually, claims that he's a Tesla-naire is what they call them. They became a millionaire with Tesla stock. And he actually shows his portfolio. It's 90-some% Tesla stock.
Oh.
Maybe not a good idea for, I'm going to say, most people, given the volatility of that. They wake up one morning and their entire portfolio is down 30%, things like that. And maybe they need income. What happens if you need income?
Yeah, but that's important to understand too, is that if, like, I always, when I do my talks, as a professional speaker, I'll go out, and when I was in Vegas, I just did part of this, which is, when I was teaching college, I remember driving out of the college parking lot and I heard an ad that said, never go to a bookstore again to buy a book. Instead, buy it on Amazon.com. And of course, I'm in the mindset, which is where most of us are right now. We're of the mindset that we know the world. We know each other. We know ourselves. And I heard that, never buy a book again, go to Amazon.com online. And I went, how stupid is that? Who would want to go online and buy a book when you can go right up here to the bookstore and pick one up, right? If I'd have bought Amazon stock that day, I'd be a millionaire today too, right? Yeah. It's not what we think we know. It's what we don't know that's going to really hurt us. And I had no idea. Now, a couple other things, I could tell you other stories, but it's important to understand that just because this guy happened to buy Amazon.com stock that day, he bought Tesla, but just because he bought it and it took him to millionaire status does not mean he knows how to invest. Right, John?
Or invest in a way that's right for you, especially,
I
right?
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and because it's just very different, and it isn't, there are some folks that oversimplify, like something like that. There are other folks that overcomplicate. So that instead of spending 10 minutes on the YouTube video, I mean, they're like studying the charts and everything else, but then they go to their regular job and they spend 8 to 10 hours a day at their regular job, which they're very good at. They're usually highly intelligent folks, but they believe, because they have done a lot of work, that they know everything about it. But what makes them good at their job? Probably because they did it and they do it all the time, all day long.
And that's a really good point. Just because because I had friends. As a matter of fact, one of the people I'm still kick around with, when I first met them, he did day trading, right? And I didn't even, I went day trading. I don't know what that is. Well, it was watching the stocks and doing this and doing that. And you know what? After 2 years, he was still working his real job that whole time. So even though he was doing day trading, he wasn't dedicating 8 hours a day to learning day trading. He was spending 2 or 3 hours a day learning day trading. And he wasn't on courses and he wasn't on this. He was trading. I tell people all the time, you can practice at something and it won't get you success, because you can practice the wrong things in that. I could practice my golf swing and from now till eternity, and I won't still hit a 300-yard drive. And the reason is because I'm still practicing the bad swing that I have. You need an expert to teach you how to fix what you don't see. And that's why you need to hire people like John, the people who spend 8 hours a day and in their spare time probably spend another couple hours a day just to learn more, to help all of us out. Now they're helping themselves too, because let's face it, I'm sure he's investing his own money in those things that he sees.
Right. Yeah. And it really is. It's not. People also think that it's like really difficult to sit down with somebody and they're scared, they're afraid. I don't want to tell people about that. I don't trust, right? I don't, and I get that, because like you said, there are people who don't have your best interest in mind. And that's one of the reasons that I went completely independent. I have my own firm. And
which I'm gonna interrupt. How do we get in touch with you? If somebody said right now, hey, I gotta go, but I sure wish I knew how to get in touch with this guy. How do they get in touch with John?
You can go out to guardianrockwealth.com, and there's a contact us page right there. And we will get right back with you. If you fill that out, it's super easy. Just your name, phone number, email. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, John Browning. And you can also email me at jbrowning@advocacyinvesting.com. And the reason that we use advocacy investing is because we're not going to sell you anything. When you talk to us, we truly are your advocates. So we want you to understand we're fiduciaries. We will only do what is best for you. And if that means not dealing with us at all, that's fine. If we can provide, I feel like if I can provide enough value to enough people, I'll be okay.
There's a saying out there that if you will help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want. And I think that's really true in this situation. You meet people who want to help you and you meet people who would love to help you, but they don't necessarily have the skills. Now, can you see this guardianrockwealth.com? Is that how you spell it, John?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so I've got on my, in case you guys don't have it, if you're listening to this on audio, it's GUARDIAN, Guardian, Rock, ROCK, Wealth, WELTH.com. So guardianrockwealth.com. And you can look up John and certainly get in touch with him. And what's your email, John? Is it John at?
Or it's J Browning.
J Browning.
JBROWNING at advocacyinvesting.com.
advocacyinvesting.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you guys got that? So, I'll probably end up making a banner here in a little bit. But it's one of those deals where you need to reach out and at least start asking questions. Here's what most of us are afraid of. First of all, I would go, well, I don't want to talk with John because then John would see that, I'm really not worth, $10. So how could he help me build any wealth? But let's get back to the basics. It takes a minimal investment to start. When you start seeing, I bought John Deere stock a long time ago. And when you see the John Deere stock go up, so you buy it at, $88 a share. And then you see the next time you look a year down the road, it's $107 a share. And then you look 5 years down the road, it's $150. You start to go, hey, I think I'm making some money on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus the dividends, plus the this, and suddenly you find you've got an investment of $100,000. And you're like, wow, that's so cool. Now, did I start off with $50,000 and I wanted to double it to 100? No, I started off with, hey, let's buy 10 shares of John Deere stock, and then let's buy 10 more shares of John Deere stock. That's how you start, and John can help you select how you need to invest. Now, I talk stock market, but John talks your portfolio, your investment, how you want to do things. I always ask the people, matter of fact, in Vegas, I asked the question, how many people have a savings account? And of course, a bunch of people raise their hand. I got, how many people have more than $5,000 in that savings account? And a good portion of the ones who raised their hand still left their hand up. And first of all, hey, applaud you for having $5,000 or more. But the second part is, how much interest are you getting on your $5,000? Well, if it's a savings account, you're probably getting 0.4, not 4%, 0.4%. Which means you're not making any money. You might as well invest in Mickey Mouse hats and go out and sell them on the corner. You're going to make more of a profit by buying wholesale and selling them retail. But most of us don't know that. Most of us don't really understand interest rates, how to invest, where to invest, what to invest in. Sometimes you take a chance. I tell people all the time, my son was 15 and he'd already read a couple books on investing. And we had a chance to buy into what was then called wireless technology. So that must have been what, 1990, 1994. I don't know when it was. And and he looked it up. There were three companies at the time. I can't remember the third company, but the one company was called White Pines. And after he did his homework, he said, Dad, I think we should invest in White Pines. I went, great. I said, what's the other one? He said, Bluetooth. And we said, okay, we'll pick White Pines. Right. Well, guess which one went fabulous, right? So if I'd have invested in all three, the same amount, guess what I'd have today? I'd have a pretty good number in there. And that's what's important, is when we don't know these stocks. So when you go to invest, I just bought into a company called Wrap Technologies. And instead of when the police shoot people with the tasers, we're getting away from tasers. They have to get away from tasers, and they have to find a way to stop people from stabbing people and shooting. So the Wrap technology is the same kind of thing, only it shoots out a bolo, and it wraps around your legs so you can't run, wraps around your arm so you can't stab people. And I bought into that a year ago. And all I'm doing, I don't know if it'll ever go up in value. First of all, I believe in the product. And the second thing is I keep hoping that in the years, especially with all this mess we've got, that somebody's going to buy out that company for a nice big chunk, and I'll make some money on my stock. But you invest because you have an interest, and John can help you find that interest, right, John?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it really comes down to, it's really just 3 steps. That's what I tell people. Number 1, make a plan. And 75% of Americans, according to numerous surveys, don't really have any kind of plan. But make that plan with a professional, not your mom, your brother, your sister, your best friend, but with somebody who's been there and done that before. It can be invaluable. That's the key thing about it. And then, of course, with any plan, it's really no good unless you consistently execute that plan. And I would suggest that it would be very helpful if you use a professional to execute on that plan, because you're busy being very good at what it is that you do. And then number 3, and this is true of any plan, even if you're following a roadmap trying to get somewhere, because there's probably going to be a detour if you're taking a really long trip somewhere along the way, plan in the plan for adaptation. And what are you going to do when something happens? That's really those three things. If you have those three things and you're doing things consistently, I don't care if you're starting with $10 a month or $10,000 a month, it's getting started. Like you said, getting started and watching it happen over time.
Yeah. So when you say have a plan, what do you mean have a plan? Like, hey, I got $100, I'm going to invest it. Is that my plan? Am I done?
You're definitely not done. So you think about it like if you're planning a trip, and this is the crazy thing. Most people will plan out their vacations and they'll spend some time because they want that vacation to be really nice. You don't get to do it that often. It's a nice break from work. Spend a lot of time.
How many people listening to this right now? How many of you are going on a vacation probably the next 6 or 8 months, right? And you've been planning it since last year, right? Have you been planning this vacation since last year? So how much time have you already spent planning that vacation, right, John?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So spending a little bit of time, and the first thing you do on that is you want to know, where's the destination? Where am I going? So picking that spot. Let's say I want to go to Disney World or Disneyland,
Disney
right?
World. I want to go to Iowa. I heard that was heaven.
Yeah, it's really nice there. Yeah.
Field of Dreams is there. Must be good.
That's right. But knowing that destination is your first step. The second step, and everybody says, well, what is it? I get a lot of differing responses for what's the second. Well, the second step is, where are you?
Oh,
it's really hard to get
good idea.
So
you're saying if I said I wanted to have a portfolio of 100,000, is a destination of $100,000 a good end spot for me?
Well, it all depends on who you are, right? And what your goal is. So the destination in this is not the dollar amount, right? It's the life that you want. So,
but most of us think it's dollars, don't we?
Most of us think it's dollars, right? But that's just the tool. So if you have somebody who, my best life is sitting in a cabin in the mountains, reading a good book by the fire. Awesome. They're probably not going to need as much as somebody's like, my best life, I want to see the world. I want to go on a world cruise every year. They're going to need a little bit more of that tool to support that lifestyle. So that's part of that planning process, is that first thing. What's your best life? What's that
really good? How many of us have ever thought about that? That's one of the things I do a whole session on goal setting. So how many of you have ever thought, boy, this is what I want when I retire? Most people say, I just want to retire, right? That's interesting, that I just want to retire. I want to just be able to kick back. I want to be able to eat bonbons, do nothing. And that's really not what you want. Like John said, most of us say, hey, when I hit 65 or 70 and I want to retire, I still want to do this. When was the last time you sat down with your partner, right, if you have one, and said, what do we want our life to look like when we retire? Talk about it, share it. And when you come up with what you want your life to look like, now, as John said, now you have to, what's the second step? John, what's the second step?
The second step is consistently execute the plan. If you don't execute it, doesn't do anything good.
Yeah, if I said, hey, I want, like you said, you can travel the world, or this is what I want. I want a cabin that's paid for. I want this that's paid for. I want that's all taken care of. Yeah. And so if you know that, then money, obviously figuring out the money is part of it, but that's what I want. And once you figure out what you want, then you have to figure out a way to get it. You got the plan for what you want, then you got the consistency to keep it all together until you get that. And of course, anytime along the way, let's say your kid decides that they're going to drop out of college and move back in with you, and you got to support them because they're not going to have a job. Well, that's going to affect how much money. That's your adapt, right? I got to adapt and put another $15,000 in for my kid or something like that.
Right. Yep. Those things always come. Life happens. We know life happens. So how are you going to adapt to that? Exactly.
That's really cool. And so when you've got, and again, how you get a hold of John is you can go to guardianrockwealth.com. You can go to jbrowning@advocacyinvesting.com. But what I want you to do is I want you to reach out to jbrowning@advocacyinvesting.com and just ask him some questions. He's not going to charge you an arm and a leg. Well,
No.
maybe just an arm, but but it's just reach out. You know what? The reason most of us don't talk to somebody we know is because we're afraid that now they'll know how much we're really worth or not worth. We put on this wonderful facade, I'm worth this much money. And then when we sit and talk to somebody, it's like, but we're really only worth this much money. So it's always embarrassing to talk to somebody about money. Here's a chance for you to talk to somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't care how much money you think you've been worth all these years, who only wants to help you answer a few questions about how you can get to the next step. If you don't have a step, so something like 50% of all Americans over the age of 50 have less than $50,000 in any kind of savings, investment, or retirement plan. Well, $50,000 will barely get you 1 year of life after you retire. So when you talk about that, say, hey, John, I got $10,000. That's the most I've had in my life all this time. What do I need to do to make that into this life that I want when I retire? How many years away is it? And that's what John would be happy to chat with you about. And it's a chat, right? He's not going to sell you. Well, you like Girl Scout cookies. I heard he sells those, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah. I like Girl Scout cookies. Yeah, they get really expensive when they get in my hands because I really don't want to sell those.
Oh.
I want to eat those.
Girl Scout cookies have gotten really expensive, though, haven't they? Have you seen those things? Holy cow. Anyway, what I want you to know is you should reach out here. Reach out. It's your time. It's your turn. And this is what we're on here for. We're on the Speaker Talks stage or Speaker Talks podcast here to try and help you improve your life. Whether you're a speaker, whether you're an author, whether you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you're a leader who just says, I don't think I'm making the return I should be making on my investments. Boy, let's ask why. Now, we're 32 minutes into this, John. We got about 3 minutes to wrap it up. What else can you share with us that will help us along the way?
Well, I think if you're thinking that, I have a plan because I contribute to my 401k every paycheck.
Yeah.
That may not be your best plan, because what are you going to use that for, and how much is it going to be, and how much are you going to need, and what expenses actually go up in retirement? So if you think you have a plan and that's the plan, maybe you should reconsider and talk to a professional. And what would it be like if you knew you had a step-by-step plan that was going to get you to your best life? I just want people to think about that. How would that feel if you knew the steps you were going to take today and you'd go to sleep at night and know that those things were happening?
I'd go to sleep at night going, how do I get to that next step?
And that's why you call me.
Hey, John. But and it's really important that we start looking towards our future. Most of us don't do that. I hope you're listening to this with the intent to have your future set in stone when you get there. Like John said, there's things that happen along the way, but some kind of plan beats no kind of plan. And 50% of all Americans have no kind of plan at all right now for their retirement. Probably a lot more than that, but that's the stats we hear in terms of how they're able to get by. That doesn't include the people who don't have jobs now. It doesn't include the people who already don't have not part of society at this point in time. So I want you to think about those things. What can John do? What question do you need answered when it comes about your money situation? Does that make sense? I hope you call. And John, how do they get hold of you again?
J Browning at advocacyinvesting.com, or they can go out to guardianrockwealth.com and fill out the contact us. And they can also learn a lot there on the website. There's plenty of free information there, as well as the how to contact me. And they can always give me a call at 312-372-5000.
Say that again slower now. They finally started to reach for their pens.
Yeah, so my phone number, and this comes directly into the office and generally gets transferred to me, is 312-372-5000. And My email is jbrowning@advocacyinvesting.com. And it's guardianrockwealth.com.
Cool. All right. We've given you a whole bunch of little tools, a whole bunch of insights. I hope you jump all over this and let us know what else we can do to help you grow. I'm Steve at stevesapato.com. You can reach out to me anytime. John, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I sure appreciate your time today.
All right. Thanks a lot for having me on the show.
My pleasure.